Hi folks, welcome to Gunfight Statistics number 2 or number 3, depending on how you look at it. I highly recommend both these books. I want to clear some things up, add more information, etc. from last time. My original video on it was called 3579 Rule. We'll talk about that in a second. Before I start, this time I'm going to give just a little bit of information about myself. I'm Dan the Wolfman, lifelong martial artist, 4 black belts, fought MMA pro, bounced forever, work armed security, work with autistic kids and intellectually disabled adults and autistic, and about to go do some more serious armed security work, things like that. I've been a guest through SWAT school, had active shooter training, etc., and so forth. 15 years old, I was the youngest from a firearms trainer through his little academy, who was an inner city cop, well respected, did executive protection. Just to give you a little bit of my background, I have the highest rated self-defense instructional on the world's biggest site. It's called Combatives in Street Jiu-Jitsu on BJJ Fanatics. I'd love it if you go get it. It will help you because I'm kind of keeping concealed carry in mind. It's 4.5 hours long, and I think you would benefit from it greatly. So would your loved ones, going over some simple stuff with them and hearing about awareness and things like that. Besides that, I've now been involved in 12 defensive gun uses where I really thought I needed a gun, whether I had a draw or defensively display or not. I'm telling all or most of those stories each month, so make sure you check out my DGU story. So 12 times in the last 8 years so far. So first video I did was on the 3579 rule. What I meant by that, go look at that video, is that I think everyone needs to be prepared for at least 3 attackers. We talked about exponentially going up like a bell curve, the actual FBI statistics. I think it was 2018, and it got worse in 2020 and starting up to get worse again. So at least be prepared for at least 3 bad guys, always. Typical engagement distance, and we'll talk more later, is average 5 yards. So that means in that 2 to 7 yard range is the preponderance of your training. You must have a fairly quick draw to first hit. 1.5 would be awesome. 1 second, everyone's lying to you on YouTube, and almost everybody. 1.75, you're still probably going to get them before they get you. 2 seconds, it might be an exchange of gunfire. Okay, now I know that's difficult for a lot of people to train indoor ranges, but it is what it is. 7 seconds. I believe 7 seconds. You got to prepare to go. Realistically, gunfights between 4 and 8 seconds. So you got to be prepared to fight, have the capacity to fight for at least 7 seconds. 3579 rule. And I believe typically if you're only carrying 1 gun, you better have 9 rounds in gun. It better be at least 8 plus 1. Now, we'll get to the actual statistics that kind of back up my theory on that. Before I do that, I want to say that handguns suck. Stopping power handgun, no matter the caliber, is basically a myth. You got to put them in the heart or you got to put them in the CPU. And even if you put them in the heart, even if you sever that aorta, they got 8 to possibly 15 seconds of trying to kill you time. Machete you time, stab you time, shoot you time. Okay? Even if they fall down, we see reanimations getting back up because of BP loss, not enough, and then BP shock as they lay down or kneel over, they regain, and then they attack again. We see that all the time in officer-involved shootings. You might want to pay attention to that. So handguns are not rifles or shotguns. Okay? We have plainclothes FBI stats. Now, when plainclothes FBI and DEA, most of their shootings are actually when dimwits go, mostly the guys in overcoats, thinking they got money and try to rob them at close range, just like they would you and me. That's why these statistics have some validity. Plainclothes FBI from 2012 to 2016, there was 26 OIS, officer-involved shootings. Rounds fired, 96 total. Average per engagement, 3.7 rounds. From 0 to 3 yards were 57 shots, 59%. That tells me that FBI aren't as tuned on to awareness and their environment as they should be, because they let people get too close thinking I'm an FBI agent. Nobody's going to get me, because they shouldn't let people get within 3 yards. Okay? 3 yards is conversational distance. Bad guys usually do an approach, asking a question before seeing if you're a victim, to then draw the knife, draw the gun, whatever. 3 to 7 yards, 10 shots fired, 11% of the 96. 7 to 15 yards, 20 shots fired. That's 21% from 7 to 15 yards. And 15 to 25 yards, 9 shots were fired. That's 9%. So that's 30% of their rounds were farther than 7 yards. 30% of the rounds fired in plainclothes FBI were farther than 7 yards. So that means preponderance, 2 to 7 yards, okay? 2 to 7 yards, but that says 30%, which is pretty high for being past that 7-yard range, okay? DEA in 2007, plainclothes, 44 OIS. Average distance was 14.6 feet or 5 yards. Average number of rounds fired by the DEA was 5. Well, then you're like my J-frame, 38's just fine. That's the average number of rounds fired, and this is back then, 2007. Everyone wasn't having Glock 19s with switches. You might want to keep that in mind. That means some were 7, 8, 9 to average from the ones that were only 2 or 3. Okay, use some simple thinking here. The NYPD average is the biggest study, most recent study we have available. The average rounds fired by the NYPD are 8 rounds. Now, what I want to say about that, I think they're just changing. That's with a very, very, very heavy New York Glock trigger, like 12 pounds, like a revolver trigger. That means the rate of fire, their panic fire, isn't as fast that you're going to do, because they deal with violence every day, and that most officers do. So that lowered the average by the heavy trigger. Okay. Also, that is Glock 17s with 124 plus P gold dot. Do you guys carry a 4.5-inch barrel with the bestest ammo available, 124 plus P gold dot? More than likely, your little 3-inch micro does not have the terminal ballistics that a 4.5-inch 124 plus P gold dot does, or all the officer shooting footage we have, where they often absorb many, many, many rounds and often reanimate and reattack. You might want to keep in mind how hard it is to stop someone with a knife charge or a machete charge. Keep that in mind. Tom Given's Rangemaster students, I think this is the best data we have. Up to May of 2019, I don't know if we have new stats available since then. His students were in 67 DGU, defensive gun use. 64 wins, and that's not display, that means firing. 64 wins, he calls it 0 losses and 3 forfeits. Why does he say 3 forfeits? 3 of the students at the time of the robbery or personal assaults or rape attacks or whatever it was, 3 were not carrying and 3 subsequently died. Always be carrying. Follow your ABCs. EDC means everyday carry. It doesn't mean only sometimes when I feel like it to downtown. It doesn't mean, okay, I've had 12 and you don't know when they're going to happen, people. Okay? 3 not carrying died. 64 carrying, 1. Only 3 had minor injuries. 61 out of 64 survived without getting injured. Only 3 had minor injuries. 10% of those attacks were in or around the home. 90% were away from home. Over 90% were 3 to 7 yards. He then later gives 93.1%. And 80 to 86%, he claimed both, were in the 3 to 5 yard range, which is approximately 1 large car. So think that most attacks are going to happen in the distance of 1 large sedan. Okay? Most attacks will be, and shootings will be within the distance of 1 large sedan. 2 incidents, there was physical contact. 3 were close contact. Only 2 made physical contact. I think 1 was defensively by the defender, maybe, as he saw the guy drawing. I'm not positive on that. But only 2 are in that, real close range. So 0 to 2 yards, all that fun CQB stuff. A guy like me with 4 black belts, catch wrestling, jiu-jitsu expert, combatives and street jiu-jitsu expert, unlike the other people saying, oh, you all need that like an undercover narc and fighting in a car. it's really unlikely. That doesn't mean you shouldn't train it, and I have how to kick and shoot from the ground and get up to base and get my instructional. It would help. 3 DG defensive gun uses were beyond 15 yards. One at 15 yards, one at 17 yards, one at 22 yards. So beyond 7 yards for Tom Given students happen 5.2% of the time. But that's 1 in 20. And remember the FBI stats earlier, 30% were 15 past 7 yards, 7 to 25 yards, 30%. Tom Given's 1 in 20 events were past 7 yards. And then you have outlier events, active crap bags at malls and stuff. His first 2 shots at miss were at 42 yards. His first 2 that hit after he braced were at 40 yards. And then he made approaches and up to 20 and closer, etc. It's not like all the YouTubers say. But keep in mind, and then there's been much longer legal defense. Oh, my 380 bodyguard, my 38 snub, that's only for close range. Mother, that may be the preponderance, but you have no idea what defensive gun use you're going to be involved in. You have no idea when you're going to need to rescue your wife, rescue your family, rescue a cop on the side of the road. You have no idea what the distance is going to be other than preparing most for the preponderance. Okay? So there you go. And Tom Given said off the top of his head, one needed 8 rounds, one needed 11 rounds, one needed 12 rounds and these are people that go to pay for a weekend training course are already really switched on, taking things really seriously. That means, number one, their awareness is higher, so they picked up on the cues. That's why they're so successful. They weren't drawing late when the guy already had a knife in his ribs, okay? They already pretty much were drawn at 3 yards, okay? Or to 7, 2 to 7 yards, okay? So they didn't let someone get contact because they had higher awareness. They also have higher hit ratio than everybody, okay? No reloads were required, but 3 went to slide block. So keep that in mind. 3 went to slide block. I know if I get in a DGU against 1, 2, 3, or maybe 5 attackers, like one time happened to me, I certainly would like to be able to have at least 2, 3 left in the pistol to deal with the guy who comes back, or maybe a reload if you're carrying a single stack or a revolver, in case his buddies came back, or they got to the car, drove down the street, decided we're going to drive by on the way back and shoot out the window kind of thing. I would like to have something to defend myself and good, sane, sober, moral people, or family, or wife around you, whatever. God forbid you ever got married. I never did. Okay, so, anyway, or if you reanimate, you think it's done, you emptied your 9 rounds into the guy, or less 6, 5, or 6, and then the guy with the knife gets back up and starts to stab you. BP shock gets relieved, unless you did a lot of big bullet damage to very critical areas. They reanimate and they try to stab again. Okay, the law enforcement typical hit ratio is 20%. And those guys deal with violence all the time. So they're more switched on, more ready, more aware than most typical, I bought a gun, I can handle myself, even though I only shoot once a year. Okay? Tom Given's students almost had a 95% hit ratio. So it is possible if you take things very seriously, you pay for training, or you got training like I did, etc. But much more awareness in transitional space to pre-attack indicators, fast unfumbled draw, meaning they actually practice their draw. And if your draw to first hit isn't 2 seconds, you need to dry fire train and be careful and really, really practice. Okay, I'm anywhere from a 138 warmed up to a 175 on a winter day. And you should train in gloves and winter coats and shit that binds your shoulders and stuff too, like I do. That's why you should watch my videos, even though some people find watching shooting boring. You see training in a realistic manner. Okay, if a revolver, I got to get to work, so I only brought 3 empty firearms out. If a revolver guy, this is my Taurus 856 UL, my always #1 rule gun. Look at you need to always 1 rule snub. Look at that video. 6 shots. This was 16 ounces. Put on a night sight. It's good to go. And I like 6-inch, 2-inch a lot better than 5-shot 1 7/8 inch to actually get hollow point expansion with the best hollow points. If you don't shoot a J-frame good enough, you have to go to wad cutters. I do have wad cutter ballistics video coming up, and FBI 158 load coming up. You should check out. Look at my PaulHarrell tribute playlist. I film more PaulHarrell videos with hollow points, and yesterday with 12 types of 115 grain. So make sure you subscribe and look at my PaulHarrell tribute playlist. So if a revolver guy, just like Jim Cirillo, you gotta carry 2, because you're going to empty that 5 or 6 shot cylinder starting at 2 seconds to your first hit in the real world, and you're going to empty that 5 or 6 shots, especially if there's 3 bad guys or more. Be prepared for 3, 2, 2, and 2 on each. Now you're empty at 4-second mark. But the gunfight's still going on up to 8 seconds, 7 to 8 seconds. Often enough to worry about. You must carry another one. So a lot of retired cops do carry a belt snub, or even a 3-inch. You know, I got 3 inches Colt Black Beauty or Rossi RP63s. I can still handle 357. At some point, I'll go to Hydra Shock Deep 38 plus P belt gun, and this in the pocket gives you 11 or 12. The problem is there's a 2-second to 2.5 second dead time on that New York reload. Reasons carry a backup gun. Look at my video, 9 reasons carry a backup gun. It helps you deal with unknown threats as they approach. You can be not brandishing with your hand on the pocket gun. I like weak side from pocket. But there's 2.5 seconds of dead time that puts you at 6.5 seconds to your back in the fight, and you get 2 more off before they run away. But at least you got some in there instead of being dry in case he reanimates or his homies come back. Okay? So if you're going to do it, and maybe you want to get some custom wolf grips, go to customwolfgrips.com. You can click over to premium grips and look at Dan the Wolfman's custom wolf grips for J-frames, Taurus, Charter Arms, Rossi RP63. Okay. Now, of my 12 DGUs that I felt needed a gun, 5 were 2 or more. 4 were 2 attackers. One time was 5, plus more across the street I remember that could have came involved. 5 would-be carjackers. 2 of the solo guys had rifles. Look at my videos explaining all. One of the guys with 2 guys had body armor on. Yes, legitimate body armor on. That's a pretty wild video coming up. The time I was most scared you might want to listen to. Other modifiers like a huge giant or a huge dog might come into play if you needed to fire. Keep that in mind. Greg Elfrich's data alternate look at handgun stopping power. 380 and above require usually 3 hits on the body. And guys, it's really about hitting the pumper and pipes or the CPU. Orange grapefruit size. I mean, it's really small, but typically at least 3. But we see in real shooting now, we get footage all the time. And again, that's 4.5 inch, typically Glock 17s with 124 plus P gold dot or 135 plus P critical duty. Some of the best rounds, I prefer 124 plus P HST or punch, but that's the best rounds from longer barrels. Better terminal ballistics than what you got. They get hit 6 times, they go down, and they re-attack. They get hit 6 times, they retreat, realize they've shot, and then they re-attack. Might want to keep that in mind. But 13 to 17% of the time with 380 and above, 13 to 17% of the time, they were not incapacitated. Because a lot of people get shot in the toe and they go, oh man, you shot me. Psychological stops. A physiological stop. 13 to 17% of the time with 389, 40, 45, they didn't stop. Not incapacitated. It is much, much, much worse the not incapacitated ratio when you go below 380. It is much, much worse, 25, 35, 40, 45% if you go to mouse guns. Okay? And all the footage online, again, keep in mind the terminal ballistics difference. Now, what do I recommend you carrying? Is something between a subcompact and a macro. I'll do another video hopefully soon on that. We are clear and empty. I've already checked. This is the brand new Ross Martin RM1S. I do a lot of videos on 12+1 or 15+1, so equipped. I got it decked out. It is perfect. This is actually a hybrid, thinner than all the other subcompacts on the market, but decentish recoil control. Heavy enough, thick enough, more dispersion because it's 1.1 inch instead of 1 inch like the micro macros. Something like this, or an old school subcompact, MMP 2.0, 3.6 inch, 3.5 inch barrel. Maybe a Glock 26 with extended so you get your pinky on it. 12 rounds kind of thing. Maybe the Ruger RXM. I'm waiting on a 12 round version of that. I don't know if they're going to do a 3.4 or 3.6 inch barrel. Something in the subcompact range. If carrying a compact 4-inch barrel becomes too much, or you're not going to do it every day, here. Now, most people will find this shootable, or like my GX4 carry, a macro, a lot more shootable than the micros. It's going to be the worst day of your life, and you want to make hits, and you don't want to hit innocent civilians. As non-law enforcement, you do not have those protections. Being able to hit what you're going for is vitally important. Now, because of terminal ballistics advantages with, remember when 9mm wasn't good enough? And maybe still isn't. Remember when 380 wasn't good enough? Hollow points. Now, I might carry to nicer areas when I stay on the north side of my town, only going to like Kroger's and my nice restaurant I like to go to. This is going to get occasional carry in summertime. My Beretta 84 BB with lock grips, and this thing's awesome, and it's perfectly balanced and perfect size. And I got 13+1 with new McGar magazines. McGar magazines are the best magazines that are an OEM, and in fact, they're OEM from a ton of manufacturers. So now, even though it's old, it's reliable. It functions with hollow points. I have a Federal Punch. I would like a little deeper with Federal Hider Shock Deep. Or Underwood plus P380. You might want to subscribe to GunSam, my friend. Arizona Air Gunner, and other people, Discreet Defense, and Trigger Bar Philosopher has done a lot of 380, and he put the MDF in, and I've talked to the head guy, Chris Locke, about MDF. He even mentioned it in USCCA magazine this month. That's because of my modern meat target videos using the MDF. So there you go. Do I go to the worst areas? That is Meth Row, where one of my recent ones were. Meth head eyeing me to rob me? Probably not. That's when this, or maybe PSA Dagger Micro C1, Micro Dagger C1, or this will be my summer carries. As a backup gun, this Taurus 856 Ultralight's awesome. My Charter Arms 40 cal or my Ruger Max 9 Pro are my backup guns. So, guys, those are the best statistics. Look at my DGU stories. Again, 5, it was out of 11. Now it's out of 12. 5 out of 12 had multiple attackers. FBI said it was 1/3 back in 2018. And it was exponentially going up. And 2020 was horrible. And now 2024 is heating up again, depending on what city you're in or how close you are to a Tulsa dealership, Tesla dealership. So, anyway, guys, those are the statistics. So as I recommended in the other video, most people are only going to carry one gun. In that case, you want 9 rounds in gun. You don't want 6+1 and I carry a 10-round backup magazine. MFer, you're not going to have time to reload anyway, unless they drove off, and that's just to cover the guy that you hit really good that's down, and the, 1, 2, 3 that ran away or drove away in case they come back. So if you're carrying a single stack, carry an extra mag. Most people, if you're not carrying an extra mag, and you really don't need to, I always keep an extra one in the center console. I do carry it if I go into a big box store. I recommend at least 8+1. That could be 380, could be 9mm. I say 8+1 of 45. I say 10 or 11. I got a couple 12+1, 13+1 subcompact 40s. I like for winter time. I like that a lot for that to get through the heavy clothing and still expand. When it's really cold, I really like 40. And or a 9mm with at least 9 rounds, but typically I say I'm only comfortable. You're very likely to maybe use 8 to 11, so it's too likely. And Tom Givens, one guy needed 12, and we've seen on ASP many used 13. One guy used 18. I like having at least 12+1, 13+1, and 9mm. Most likely to only use 5 to 11. That may be. I'd like to have 2 left over because I'm typically not carrying an extra mag anymore like I used to. But I typically am hopefully carrying something like this. I got 15 plus 1 and I got 6. That's pretty dang good. And if I'm limited to pocket gun only, I typically won't even do the 5 or 6 in a snub. That's when the 10 plus 1, depending, or 12 plus 1 of a micro 9 come into play. Okay, so if you have to for work, if you have to for you're just lazy and won't carry a belt gun, and you only pocket carry, then maybe the micro 9. But you got to practice with it because most people really don't handle the recoil really well. They can't shoot accurately and fast, and that's what it's all about with the micro 9. So I say 8 plus 1 of 45, 10, 11 plus 1 of 40, or 12, 13 plus a 9mm. But at minimum, I think you need 8 plus 1 in gun, or my revolver lovers, carry 2 snubs. 1 on the belt, maybe a heavier one on the belt, maybe a 357 on the belt, 3-inch barrel instead of 2, something like that, or a 3-inch Taurus 856 Defender, 3-inch, right, or on the belt, and then like a 2-inch in your pocket. But if you're in a close range gunfight, if you're someone that goes into gas stations a lot to get your sodas and all that, you're in a close range gunfight, one guy ran out, one guy you hit, you're exchanging fire with him from all of 2.5 yards away, and he's down on the ground and he's still shooting you, and you're hiding by Fritos. Thank you, PaulHarrell. Instead of the soda jugs that will maybe stop a bullet, hide behind the water and the soda jugs and the coolant, but you're exchanging fire really close. So that dead time really sucks. Now, hopefully you're trained enough. I empty my 5.6 cylinder if needed, 2.22 per bad guy, or 2.2 and reevaluate, and retreat drill, and get to cover. You're going to move offline and get to cover. But if you're with your wife and kids, that might be more difficult to New York reload. So if you're going to be a snub guy, by God, carry 2. If you only pocket carry, I sure like 6 better than 5, and I sure like 10 plus 1 and a micro 9. Or a Bodyguard 2.0 380 if you have to with Hydroshock Deep or Punch. There you go in the pocket. So I know this was super long. Please thumbs up, share, subscribe, get down there in the comments. Let me know what you think. But I just gave you all the best data there is available in the world that I know of and no one else gives you. That is the real data. So even if 5 or 8 might be an average, there's times when it might be a 16-round mag dump. Or in Tom Given's Instructors 11 or 12, or Eli Dickin 10. So keep that in mind. Kaboom.